we have the main event for the AEW Championship, Christian Cage against Kenny Olivier with his manager, Don Fallis, who looks like a bottle of Pepto-Bismol. Well, with the pink suit and the white head, right? He looks like a bottle of Pepto-Bismol.
And the white head. I thought about the pink suit. I didn't think about the white head.
Yeah, he's got the pink suit and the white head.
All right.
I wonder if you screwed Don Fallis's head off his shoulders, if you could pour a measured amount of medicine into his neck and take it as a shot out of his fucking bald head. Anyway. He used to have such wonderful hair. Speaking of hair, now Twinkle Toes' hair is dyed jet black. I mean, fucking, inverse gravity jet black with a bluish blonde splotch on top of his head. It looks like a pelican took a shit on top of his head. Every week it's something different. Anyway. They started this match, and you know how much I like Christian Cage. And I think he's an excellent worker and a complete pro and a great guy. There's only so much you can do with this guy while you're trying to let him do his shit too. That's where it all falls apart. But they started the match with the hockey fight. It was the best one of the 3 or 4 that I've seen in matches on this show, but it was, again, with the hockey fight. And immediately they went to the floor and started bouncing off the barricades. And within the first 90 seconds, Cage had done a leap and a double sledge off the top of the turnbuckle to the floor. So they started out doing the same shit that everybody else was doing. And then in the first 3 minutes of the match, Cage is laying on the floor selling outside the ring. Twinkle Toes pulls a table from under the ring, puts it on top of Christian, gets back up on the apron and backs up. Christian is laying there under the table waiting for this, and Twinkle Toes jumps off the apron with a double stomp and breaks the table on top of Christian Cage in the first 3 minutes. Then the referee watches Don Fallis and Twinkle Toes set up another table on the floor. He watches it. He doesn't do anything about it, but he just watches it. Then they do the deal where they try to milk giving somebody a bump through the fucking table, which always backfires, and it did in this case because Twinkle Toes tries to suplex Cage through the table, but Cage turns him around and suplexes him on the floor instead. And then they get in the ring and start wrestling. And at one point, then they're back out on the floor, and Cage is laying there on the floor again. This is a common theme. And old Harpo goes to do a springboard moonsault off the barricade onto Cage on the floor, and his feet slipped off the barricade, and his ass landed tailbone first on that metal bicycle rack.
Yeah, that looked bad.
And I'm sure that was comfortable. And then, of course, instead of thinking quickly, such as, well, I'll just fucking forget about this fancy shit and get back on my opponent, or instead of Cage getting up and tackling him because he made a mistake, Cage just laid there and let him look at the people and go, oh, no, and then jump up and do it again and land it because there's no reason to move for Cage because... And then he wandered around. And I feel bad for Christian Cage. His shit looks good. He works hard. As I said, he's solid. Every time that you let Twinkle Toes do his awkward shit, it either doesn't make sense or it drags the match down. And they were going a while, too, because we were 3.5 hours into this show already, and they've still got a lot to do. And then Twinkle Toes started doing the Petunia suplexes. And he did several Petunia the Snapdragons. Snapdragons, Petunias, Daisies, Magnolias, things like that.
They explained on commentary why it was such a devastating suplex.
Mm-hmm. Excrement explains a lot on commentary, too.
That's his role.
Yeah. Anyway, so then Twinkle Toes tried to German suplex Christian Cage off the ring apron through the table set up on the floor. Let me ask you this, Brian. You're watching this. Cage is standing on the apron holding onto the top rope, right? His back is toward the table. Twinkle Toes is waist-locked him, standing on the apron as well, and is trying to pull him off the ropes where he's holding on to so he can German suplex him backwards off the ring through the table. Have I described that correctly?
I think so.
If old Twinkle Toes was to hit that move, German suplexing somebody backwards off the apron through a table, what would happen to him?
He would have some issues.
He would have a 200-pound man on top of him going through that fucking table, wouldn't he? God damn. And so but they didn't do that, obviously, because they go through the deal where they do a preposterous milking of a series of moves off the apron, trying to tease to the crowd that somebody's going to go through the table, because that's the most important thing in the history of wrestling, is to make sure you break as many tables as possible. And finally, after 2 or 3 of these reversals and switches and etc., Cage spears Twinkle Toes off the apron through the table. So now that's the second time we've broken a table in the same match. Nobody's going to sell it, or it's not going to play any part in the finish. I wrote, please go home. Twinkle Toes hit a bunch of his knee lifts, but then suddenly Cage got a cloverleaf, and then Phallus calls down Gallows and Anderson. And this was a great spot. Don Phallus jumps up on the apron of the ring and engages in a lengthy conversation with the referee, while less than 10 feet behind the referee's back, a giant 300-something-pound man and his fucking sidekick are interfering in the fucking match that's going on, and Cage is fighting them off behind the referee's back. And then finally, Cage hits his finish on Twinkle Toes, the kill switch, and Twinkle Toes kicks out of it. So Cage sets Twinkle Toes up on the top. And then that's when Don Callis gets in the ring in front of the referee and just waves his arms, and Christian jumps down and chases him out. There's no contact, but should I break it to the people now that no, there doesn't have to be contact when the manager comes into the ring for it to be a disqualification? That's a modern contrivance of the actual rules because, well, you know what it is. Lazy booking. If the referee sees you in the ring, it's supposed to be a disqualification. But nevertheless, that's the least of their problems. Because Cage jumped down, chased him out of the ring, and then goes back and goes to the top, and he's going to give his finish to Twinkle Toes off the top, but Twinkle Toes gouges his eyes, and they stand up there forever and a day while Twinkle Toes gets Cage up on his shoulders to do the one-winged fairy off the top rope while Cage sits there and lets him do it. And it's a incredibly hard and dangerous, I'm sure, bump that required obvious cooperation to get to that point. And that's a 1, 2, 3. My God. Before we go into the afterbirth, do you have any comments on the match?
I liked it better than you did. I thought it was pretty good. Omega still, it's been a while, but at different points, the wacky faces, it always takes me out of it, but I thought it was a good match. I thought Christian did great. I have a question for you that came to me watching this. Who do you think's been better in the ring on this comeback, Christian or Edge?
Ooh. Well, it may not be fair because Christian didn't have the neck issues that Edge did.
He did have neck issues, though.
Did he have neck issues?
He had the surgery too, didn't he?
He had the same thing. Well, in that case, then if they're on an even playing field, I think Christian's probably looked quicker, better, more mobile. But of course, Edge has actually drawn more money and attention because he's with the big company that does these things right. Whereas Cage came out and made a big impact, and 3 weeks later was doing pre-taped interviews for Jungle Boy. So each one of them, I would say, has done better in some aspect of this.
Maybe it wasn't a neck. I know he had concussion issues, but I thought it was a neck too. I'm trying to look to see if I can find something, but at a minimum, it was concussion issues.
Well, I know you liked it better than I do because you're more forgiving of Twinkle Toes, although not completely. But I just can't unsee all. And also, it just the promotion that was supposed to be not sports entertainment and not WWE does even more ridiculously egregious, unbelievable sports entertainment finishes and spots in most of their matches, and that's Anyway.
I think, look, it was the right match for that room. I like Omega clearly better than you did. I'm not saying it was his greatest match or anything. I just thought, I thought it was a good match.
If they would have left several things for these people to do that hadn't been done before in the night, that would have been a positive too.
I will say this, and I brought up the other day when they did the angle on Dynamite with the cage and the beatdown that went forever. I said it reminded me of Ole and of Ole booking in 1990 and late era NWO. I was really enjoying this match. Even Callis didn't bother me. But man, as soon as you see Gallows and Anderson, it just takes you right down. Not only the fact that it's them and they are just not very good, but just the run-in. It just feels like everything that made you groan in the past. Everyone talks about how much they love the Horsemen. Fans were groaning in 1988, ladies and gentlemen, because the run-ins became a regular thing, and we saw it during WCW's, run in the late 90s. That's the only thing. I like the Omega matches better than you, but as soon as you start having those run-ins, and we've been seeing them more and more frequently with this group, with the Elite, that really hurts things. I hate it.
One of the first things Dennis Condrey taught me in Mid-South Wrestling was, and this was just a conversation in the car. This is where you learned all this shit. Said, you can tell in a territory when they've been doing too many run-ins, because as soon as the heels start getting heat, the people aren't looking at the ring, they're looking at the back. They're looking at the entrance. Who's coming? They know somebody's coming, they just don't know who or when. That's when you've been doing too many run-ins. And in the territory days, they would actually take notice of that and adjust based on seeing that in the buildings, if they were smart. But anyway, it's constant. And that's what happened. And speaking of which, Afterbirth, after the 1, 2, 3, here comes again the Hardley Boys, and here comes again Gallows and Anderson. And they start getting the heat on Christian Cage. And then I get they want to send out Jungle Boy and Dino Douche. But why do they have the dwarf with them? What use of any kind is he going to be in this situation? And it just makes it look hokey and stupid. So you've got two baby faces, Jungle Boy and the Dinosaur, that you're trying to push, and you want to at least be some fodder here again for what we're about to see. Tell the fucking dwarf to stay in the back. This is main event time. This is not time for visual comedy. And that's what he is. When you look at him, you want to laugh. So that brought this down. And there was a spot where old Dino Douche didn't sell Twinkle Toes his belt shot because he didn't feel it and didn't know he hit him with it. So they beat them down. Twinkle Toes gets the microphone and turns into another phony circle jerk party. Again, this time, I don't know whether it was because he was blowed up or he affects these mannerisms, but he was speaking like a space alien who just heard humans for the first time.
He doesn't speak in a natural way on the mic.
So anyway, he's about to tell everybody good night and fuck off. And wait, there's music. Here comes Adam Cole. And I'm okay, well, we've solved this mystery. We figured he was coming anyway. Now he's here. But wait a minute. Why is he coming alone for 6 people? He gets in the ring. The heels are shitting. Adam Cole is over. And then he super kicks Jungle Boy and hugs the Elite. And he gets kissed on the cheek by the Cucamonga Kids. So now they've ruined Adam Cole for me. He's joined the Elite. That means if I have to watch Adam Cole, I have to make the decision of whether I'm going to suffer the presence of the rest of these assholes. And I don't know whether even my love of Adam Cole can get me to do that.
I'm sure he'll do some great stuff there.
But he's already one of the boys.
He was before. I mean, again, this is just him going back to what he was doing before WWE. These were his boys beforehand.
No.
He was doing skits with them. They were kissing him. All this stuff was happening.
Matter. they've not only gave a surprise entrance, but they didn't leave any secrecy about where he was going, and they've made him, I'm talking one of the boys, not one of the elite, he's one of the boys. CM Punk isn't one of the boys yet. There's the rest of this roster, and there's CM Punk. And another guy we're about to talk about here in a second. Nothing bad's happened to him yet. He may still be above the fray. He's not one of the boys yet. They've made Adam Cole one of the boys. He's joined a group already, so now he's one of the boys. He's not a major outsider acquisition. He's fit right in, and he's one of the boys. And that diminishes his aura right from the start, to me.
How would you have brought him in?
Well, if he has to be with his friends, that doesn't mean you have to tell everybody how it's going to happen that night. I'm not going to rebook this whole goddamn thing, because for one thing, all these fucking surprise entrances on top of one another, I might have spread this out a bit, but you could have easily had Adam Cole come out and have anything non-physical with people, stare downs, whatever, you don't know what's going on, and then do the angle on free television where over 1 million people will see it instead of 100 or 200,000. But nevertheless, he gets kissed by the Cucamonga Kids and more music. It's the flight of the Bumblebee or the ride of the Valkyries. And here comes Bryan Danielson, and now the people go batshit. I don't know if I do all these at the same time, because there's going to come a time where they're going to run out of entrances of people that people go batshit for because they didn't expect or they didn't know when they were showing up or whatever. But here, this batshit tops the last batshit, and Bryan Danielson goes in and picks up the baby faces, and they all look at the heels, and they all get in a fight. And Danielson shit got all the reaction, and everybody else was just taking up space. So I'm glad that both those guys are there. As I said, I'm concerned about the company that Adam Cole's going to be keeping. And boy, this definitely was a surprise-filled pay-per-view, but are they starting to put these just one on top of another quickly just for the sake of having these great entrances? Are they going to run out of them when they run out of people to do them?
Well, they'll certainly run out of them. There are a few more they could have in the future, in the immediate future, and we'll see as contracts come up, but everyone's pointing to Bray Wyatt. The Adam Cole thing, I guess if you were going to debut him here, you had to debut Daniel Bryan here, or Bryan Danielson here, because as soon as Adam Cole came out and people like him, they were chanting yes earlier that night. They thought Bryan Danielson was going to be there. Any other surprise at the end of the night was going to be a letdown. So as soon as Adam Cole came out, you had to have Bryan Danielson there too. So you might as well. So if you weren't going to do this, you had to hold Adam Cole back until New York or whatever.
I don't know how you can say it's a letdown when you get Ruby Soho, for people who like that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing those people like as a surprise. You get CM Punk's return, and you get Adam Cole showed up, and they've still got a stadium show in New York.
Because
I thought for sure that would be.
The problem is the word leaked. As soon as word got out that AEW was thinking about debuting him in Chicago, they had to debut him there. They would have had people leaving upset, despite all the, I agree with you, CM Punk and all these surprises.
So you're saying they've worked themselves into the same corner that Paul Heyman worked himself into in ECW when people started expecting surprises, and then he had to go out and find surprises.
Yes, although so far it's worked a lot better for Tony Khan than it has for Paul Heyman. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that was the thing there. I mean, it was one of the better AEW shows overall, just for all the shock, the great crowd, the surprises, Punk's match. But Punk's match was so different because it was the only wrestling match they had.
And well, to an extent, although I expressed my problems with various things, I think Jericho and MJF actually would classify.
Well, all right. I shouldn't say that. Jericho and MJF was a wrestling match. It was just one guy was in quicksand.
Yeah.
But, okay, a high-level wrestling match, that's different now on their shows because everybody else does the same shit. So if they could actually get some guys, and they've got a few here now, that can work and have these matches, then if they allow them to have wrestling matches instead of the stunt shows, then that'll up the quality of the program. But then here's the thing. I don't know who will see through who. Will any fans that Adam Cole and CM Punk and Bryan Danielson brings to this show, will they enjoy the matches that these guys are having, and will they see through the performances of the rest of the indie talent on the card? Or because the indie fans that like that indie talent were there first and make up the majority of this fan base, will they not get into the actual professional matches that the new talent has and think that they're slow and dull? So which side's going to see through who first?
Without it happening yet, knowing some of the people there, you are going to hear people complaining about the slower style of the guys that come out of WWE, whether it's fair or not. You will hear that. But we've talked about it with the CM Punk segment. That was a great segment. What's before it and after it is part of the problem. This may have been their best pay-per-view. And it had such excitement, and people now are really looking forward to seeing what's next. People are looking forward to see what's next with Punk, with Bryan Danielson. I mean, there's so many question marks coming out of it. The momentum we talked about AEW having a few weeks ago, it feels like it's only gone up.
Oh, it's yes. And I mean, it's almost like Vince is unaware.
Is he alive? Is Vince alive? Has anyone seen a breathing Vince McMahon?
Vince McMahon, unbeknownst to himself, is taking a dive in this thing. He doesn't even realize it, that he's handing it over to him. This is not like 20 whatever years ago with WCW, which was, they got a few jumps at the start on people just because Vince hadn't had his contract situation ducks in a row because he had never needed to. So nobody wanted to go the other way. But that was a dogfight. This is just, he's being pummeled by self-inflicted wounds and letting people go and allowing them to show up there and doing a boring, crummy, nonsensical, juvenile program. And the one that was a little bit different than that, NXT, he's fixing to take that over and make that boring, juvenile, and simple as well.
And the guy who was one of the top stars, if not the top star there, is now on the other show on Wednesday nights.
There you go.
So
a couple.
But if you were watching that show from the beginning on Wednesday nights and Adam Cole was one of the main people, and all of a sudden the show's not on Wednesday nights, but Adam Cole still is. But I want to ask you some more follow-up questions about the pay-per-view and AEW and WWE and what's happening. But you mentioned Omega's hair earlier, and I had to bring this up.
Yeah.
Because it was jet black the other day. This time it was jet black with blue streaks. There was some of the Giuliani dye drip I noticed as he was walking to the ring. He's lucky he's able to dye his hair. But I think maybe because of all those chemicals and everything he's putting in his hair, pretty soon Kenny may have to worry about keeping his hair.
Well, that's the thing. I'll tell you what, because, you do a lot of damage to your hair when you're constantly changing the color like that, especially when you're using, that paint from Earl Scheib that he's using. But you don't have to damage your hair, folks. You can keep your hair. Because if you go to the folks at Keeps, then they will show you and tell you and aid you in keeping your hair. Everybody, all men at one time or another stress about hair loss, and there's a large percentage of us will have the male pattern baldness and et cetera, et cetera. However, if you start with the folks at Keeps, you can not only keep the hair you've got on your head, but you can even stimulate some that has taken a bow and left the building to come on back in for a second round. Keeps offers a simple, stress-free way to keep your hair so you won't be pulling it out. They've got convenient virtual doctor consultations, medications delivered straight to your door every 3 months so you don't have to leave your home, and treatments start at just $10 a month because they offer generic versions of all of the well-known hair prevention products. They've got discreet packaging and proven results. That's easy for me to say, but they do, and it works. They've got more 5-star reviews than any of their competitors, but folks, prevention is the key. Treatments can take 4 to 6 months to see results, so act fast. And right now, If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to Keeps, Keeps, Keeps.com/JCE to get your first month of treatment for free. That's Keeps.com/JCE. First month free for our folks, because we want to see you guys happy and hairy instead of bitchy and bald.